Assalamualaikum and a very good day Abid to all of you. My name is Muhammad Ilyasha and I would like to begin our presentation on a study on the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by a Google company. So the first one is industry structure. Industry structure can be defined as the amount and size of the competing players such as firms and sellers from the related industry in the market. Google company finally sealed the takeover process with Motorola Mobility on 22nd May of 2012. The acquisition of Motorola Mobility gave Google access to 17,000 patents on the hardware. Before this, we know that Google is mainly focused on the search engine, but now, once they get the patents from Motorola Mobility, they can involve in the hardware industry. So Google already acquired Android, a mobile operating system, on 11 July of 2005 to enter mobile industry. With the acquisition of the Motorola Mobility, Google now has met several competitors that producing their own smartphone operating system, such as Apple with iOS, BlackBerry with BlackBerry OS, Microsoft with Windows Phone, and Nokia with Nokia Series 40 back in 2012. Hence, let's have a look on the data on the market share in December 2012. As you can see on the graph, Android by Google still lead compared to other competitors. The number of the percentage of market share was 33.19% in 2012. The second followed by the iOS by Apple, which 23.26%. And then followed by Series 40 by Nokia, 14.86%. Next, Windows Phone by Microsoft, 10.72%. And the least number of market share in December 2012 is BlackBerry OS by BlackBerry, which is formed up to the 3.53% of market share in December 2012. Hence, with the acquisition of Motorola Mobility, this can help Google company to stay above of their competitors in a operating system industry. Next, let's have a look on the management and board of directors. After Google acquired Motorola Mobility, there was some changes of board of directors that left many people shocked, including the investor. The Chief Executive Officer of Motorola Mobility, Sanjay Jha, stepped down and has been replaced by a Google Senior Executive Officer named Dennis Woodside. Dennis Woodside has worked for Google since 2003 and has been heavily involved with the business advertising before becoming the CEO of Motorola Mobility. Hence, there are also three significant changes of the board of directors made by the Google. The first one is Regina Dungan. Regina Dungan holds a post of Senior Vice President in Product Innovation, followed by Mark Randall, Senior Vice President of Supply Chain Management, and the last one is Gary Briggs, Consumer Marketing Executive. For the impact of this acquisition, it was reported that Motorola Mobility cut off about 20% of their employees, or around 4,000 staff need to be laid off. Furthermore, the company also need to shut down of their offices to reduce the workforce. The company also mentioned that the reason behind the laying off of 8 employees was because it was a part of wider company restructuring to cut costs. However, we could not find the details on other Motorola Mobility's board of directors, as the company did not disclose the information due to investor concern. Moving on to the next part, corporate mission and vision. After the acquisition, Motorola Mobility did not have any specific mission and vision. However, according to their parent company, Google, its corporate mission and vision are as follows. First, Google corporate mission statement: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. In this regard, The following are the primary elements of Google corporate mission. The first one, they want to be a world information. And the second one is related with the organization. The third one is the universal accessibility. And the fourth one is usefulness. Next, Google corporate vision statement. Google corporate vision statement is to provide access to the world's information in one click. The following are the primary elements of the company corporate vision. First, the world's information. The second one is the access, and the third one is the main highlight, which is in one click. The next part, the location of the company. As we know that before Motorola Mobility was formed, actually the company was formed after the split of Motorola into two separate companies, which are one Motorola Mobility and another one Motorola Solution. But Google company only acquired Motorola Mobility since the company was focused on the consumer-oriented products lines such as mobile phone, cable modems and television. So Motorola Mobility headquarters was located at Merchandise Mart Plaza in Chicago, Illinois, United States. However, after the acquisition took place, the Google company make a new headquarters for the Motorola Mobility near to the Google main campus, which located at Mountain View, California, United States between 2003 December and 2 September 2014. However, Google company sold the Motorola Mobility to a Chinese technology firm, Lenovo, on 30 October 2014. Since that, the company's corporate office was shut down. As you can refer to the image on the right, it shows that the installation process of the Motorola Mobility logo near the main Google campus following the Google purchase on between the December 2013 to September 2014. Next, let's proceed to the perspective and analysis. The first one is Google corporate strategy. Corporate strategy is defined as the company corporate action with the aim to achieve its objective while achieving a competitive advantage at the same time. So it's usually clearly defined a long-term vision set by the organization to create a corporate value and motivate the workforce to implement the proper action to achieve customer satisfaction. As we know, corporate strategy can be in many forms such as cost leadership, horizontal or vertical integration, as well as the global product strategy. However, in this case, we are focusing on the rationale behind the corporate strategy executed by Google in acquiring Motorola Mobility. According to our analysis, we conclude that the corporate strategy implemented by the Google in taking Motorola Mobility is vertical integration. What is vertical integration? Vertical integration is a business strategy that permits a company to control stage of the value chain. It can be in terms of upward vertical, which is supply, or downward vertical, which is distribution. So this strategy consists a set of alternation that are implemented during the value chain activities in which one raw material converted into a finished good. To simplify the definition, vertical integration is when a company expands its operation to control the manufacturing or distribution of its product by either acquiring a company or building it from scratch. So, it is known that Google is the owner of the Android operating system even before the acquisition of Motorola Mobility in 2011. However, Google did not manufacture its own hardware, as the company only focusing on the software-related products. To sell its own brand of smartphone, Google Nexus One, the company had to outsource the manufacturing to HTC, a Taiwan-based technology company. Motorola Mobility, on the other hand, had a long history of the successful hardware operation and was the #1 in the mobile industrial design world. As mentioned before, the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by the Google mainly to get the 17,000 of patents in hardware. So according to the telecoms.com, These two qualities will enable Google to create a superior user experience through the tech software experience. Analysis also sees that this acquisition made by the Google strategic corporate plan to integrate its software development within house hardware manufacturing. Google will have the ability to use Motorola mobility hardware technology and thousands of the intellectual patents in developing its own brand smartphone.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad Zulkarnain bin Yusuf, metric number 252694. And now, let's move on to the motives of this acquisition. So according to our study, we have found out that there are two motives in this acquisition. So the first motive is synergy in operation and the second is market power theory. But first, let us understand what is synergy in operation. So synergy in operation is achieved when two firms join together to produce a better value than the sum of both firms' value operating as a separate entity. And in this case, for Google, operational synergy is attained through the enhancement of operating activities by transferring Motorola Mobility's operation under Google's single entity. Before this, Google, which is also the owner of Android operating system, did not manufacture its own hardware. The company licensed the manufacturing of hardware to outside companies like HTC. And with this takeover, Google is now able to internalize its operation by acquiring more than 17,000 patents of Motorola Mobility's intellectual property. And instead of patenting its own hardware and technologies, which will require more cost, Google now have the access to use any of these acquired technologies and hardware in developing its own smartphone. And next, the motives of this acquisition is market power theory. So what is market power theory? So market power theory is the level of power or control that a company has on deciding its market price. In other words, it is the ability of a company to manipulate the price of products in the marketplace by controlling the level of supply and demand. And in this case, although Google owns Android operating system, but the company cannot completely control the Android market. This is because the company is not producing its own hardware, hence make it difficult for the company to manipulate the price, supply and demand. And with this acquisition, Google can produce its own hardware in-house instead of relying on an original equipment manufacturer OEM like HTC. And through this, Google can take the chance to manipulate, control, lead the smartphone market ahead of its competitors. The deal structure of this acquisition. So we have to understand that in any mergers and acquisition, it is crucial to form a deal structure to specify the financial terms, condition and process to complete the transaction successfully. In other words, deal structure is the methods of payment in which the acquirer executes to complete its deal with the acquiree. It highlights a set of terms that will help the firm to transfer the business ownership smoothly with lowest risk possible. And for Google, the company completed its $12.5 billion deal on the acquisition of Motorola Mobility on Tuesday, 22nd May 2012, which is nearly 10 months after the announcement in August 2011. And both companies come into a definitive agreement that Google will acquire Motorola Mobility for approximately $12.5 billion in cash, which is $40 per share. The price paid represents a premium of 63% of the closing price of Motorola Mobility shares on Friday, 12 August 2011. And both companies' board of directors, BOD, and shareholders approved the transaction, saying that it was the biggest deal ever made by Google during that time. As learned in mergers and acquisition, this is known as the taxable deal. So now we're moving on to the defensive maneuvers or mechanism taken by Motorola Mobility. So what is defensive mechanisms? Companies engage in defensive mechanism with the aim to against or prevent any mergers and acquisition took place from other companies. And defensive mechanisms can be important. First, financial defense. Second, capital structure defense. Third, corporate restructuring. And lastly, legal defense. However, based on our study on the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by Google, there were no defensive mechanism or strategies executed by Motorola Mobility to prevent Google from taking over the company. Why? Well, with the presence of Android operating system smartphones from various manufacturers, Motorola Mobility was struggling to keep pace with the game. And at the same time, big rivals such as Microsoft Windows Phone, Apple iPhone, and BlackBerry were making money, hence contributing to the failure of the company's mobile division to impress its shareholders. Motorola Mobility's market share in 2011 was 2.3%. As we can refer to the table provided, Motorola Mobility was in the 9th place in terms of worldwide mobile devices market share in 2011. This place was far behind from other Android manufacturers such as Samsung, LG, HTC, and Huawei. Apart from the loss of power in the market share, the company also facing trouble from the high-profile product delays, such as its first 4G LTE smartphone from Verizon. The inability of Motorola Mobility to make shipments of its smartphones on time had tarnished its reputation, and Google, as the owner of Android operating system, certainly has the financial ability to capitalize any business under the company. And surely, Google's acquisition of Motorola Mobility and its 17,000 patents was much needed by Motorola Mobility to turn around its business. Now, we're moving on to the value created from the acquisition. 3 years, which is in 2014, after the $12.5 billion acquisition of Motorola Mobility, Google sold the company to Lenovo for $2.9 billion, with a difference of $9.6 billion. This figure has shocked many parties as they were questioning about the worth of Motorola Mobility to Google. And although the price sold by Google was cheaper than the acquiring price, the acquisition remains one of Google's great strategic moves. According to Google, this acquisition was not just about the price, but it was beyond that. The deal was actually intended to boost Android operating system adoption and acquiring some patents. Hence, to prove that this acquisition does create some values to both companies, let's refer to the table provided. First, Google paid $12.5 billion in the acquisition of Motorola Mobility. And during that time, Motorola Mobility had $3 billion in cash as well as patent portfolios worth $3 billion. Then, Google separated Motorola Mobility Home Division from Motorola Mobility and sold the division to Iris International Limited for $2.3 billion. And in 2014, Google sold the entire Motorola Mobility to Lenovo for $3 billion. As referred to the table, Google lost around $1.2 billion on the overall deal, but there were many strategic values extracted from the deal. Google get to keep Motorola Mobility's cash worth more than $8 billion as well as the patent worth $3 billion. Hence, Google own the license and rights, and they can keep a licensing revenue stream. We conclude that Google's acquisition of Motorola Mobility does create some values, as Google's shares were up to 3% on January 2014, and the shares have tripled since Google completed the deal with Motorola Mobility in 2011. It showed that the headlines of media saying that Google takes a huge loss on Motorola deals was wrong after all. The benefit Google get from this deal outperformed the price lost by Google.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mas Fariha binti Mansur, matric number 252746. And today I will explain more about how Google organized the acquisition of Motorola Mobility. Google announced the acquisition of Motorola Mobility on August 2012 with a total of $12.5 billion. It was the biggest acquisition ever and marked as a transition from a search software company to a gadget manufacturer. However, the deal was not that simple because Google took various actions in order to acquire Motorola completely. Before the acquisition of Motorola took place, Google wished to purchase Motorola around $20 to $30 per share. In the acquisition process, Motorola used Quarterly's partner, which an investment banker to make a deal with Google. Google made a first bid on 1st of August where they offered $30 per share, but was declined by Motorola and Quarterly's banker. Then, Google made a second bid where they offered $37 per share and also was declined by Motorola. Lastly, Google made the offer of $40 per share or 11.96 billion in total, and which the addition of option and the total amount of acquisition of Motorola reached up to $12.5 billion and was agreed by Motorola Mobility and Google. This acquisition was considered as overpriced by public, but Google has been well prepared to take over Motorola as they are looking the opportunity to enter into the business of phone manufacturing and start a battle with Apple and Microsoft. The announcement by Motorola said that its shareholders vote in favor of company's acquisition by Google for $12.5 billion has received approval by Chinese Commission, United States Commission and European Commission, but in condition that Google must run Motorola as an independent company and keep Android out of the hand of competitors in the mobile devices industry. After the acquisition, there was a vertical merger between this company where involved companies that produce different services that join together, where Google as software provider while Motorola as a hardware manufacturer. An approach was taken in this acquisition to add some value to its operation, where Google can access more than 17,000 patents of Motorola, and Google have a significant power in Android industry. Next, I will explain about corporate governance of new company when Google acquired Motorola. Initially, under Google, there were multi-divisional structures that are divided into two segments, product market and geography. This multi-divisional was to ensure centralized planning that giving other units in different locations of the worldwide to flexibly innovate. Meanwhile, the original structure of Motorola also divided into two, which is enterprise that consists of wireless infrastructure, high advanced data capture, barcode scanning, and wireless broadband network. And the second one is public utility, where they produce the product to supply to the government for the general use. The second corporate governance between Google and Motorola was the termination of current Motorola CEO. Larry Page, who was the CEO of Google at that time, chose Dennis Woodside as the new CEO to replace Sanjay to assist in the change of ownership. Google believed that in order to work with maximum effectiveness, the board must be qualified and knowledgeable. The next corporate governance involved is diversion of board position and organization. Motorola Mobility has diverse almost 40% of its vice president position and hire new executive. And the last one is termination of almost 20% of Motorola's workforce in order to return the company's profitability. Due to the significant termination of workforce, there was a reduction number of research and development center, and Google also took action to leave the unprofitable or low-end devices market. Next, I will talk about post-acquisition integration after Google acquired Motorola. The first one, Google restructured the business organization, where they divided the organization into four main divisions that consist of advertising, cloud computing services, mobiles and smartphone, and last one is Android and ecosystem. This restructuring is to optimize its internal process and focus on a significant market in order to gain more profit. They also implement vertical merger when there are more than 90,000 Motorola's workforce was acquired by Google. The second one is they changed the human resources to database people management. This is to encourage precise decision-making in human management in their organization, and the decision was made by the employees were made by analytical and quantifiable data. For example, Google's P Lab was responsible to carry out experiment to determine the most effective approaches for managing employees that come from various backgrounds. And the last post-acquisition integration is they implement collaborative workplace structure. This implementation is to strengthen the cooperation between staff from different divisions to work together. They also implement employment algorithms to solve the problems regarding diversity of the employees. And this collaborative workplace structure able to identify factors that can be considered in the promotion and retention of the diverse staff, particularly from Motorola section. Thus, from three implementation post-acquisition integration that carried out by Google after acquire Motorola, we can conclude that even after acquire Motorola, Google still continue to show positive performance by using data-driven human resources function. And this approach enabled Google to create more positive results, such as the company managed to record some satisfied results in their first financial year. And the last one, we will talk about whether the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by Google is a success or failure. Even though Motorola was sold to Lenovo at lower price, it actually a success to Google. Why? Because Google's aim to acquire Motorola is to be Motorola's white knight. Google need Motorola's patent in order to keep compete in patent war with Apple and Microsoft. And also at that time, Motorola was facing challenges in their market to keep up with the Samsung and HTC in Android innovation. So by the acquisition, Google got large inventory of original equipment manufacturer or OEM to manufacture smartphone. And it actually a win-win situation for both Google and Motorola. The second one is because of intellectual property. Google can take advantages of Motorola's long experience in Android industry, where they can access more than 70,000 of Motorola's patents that can strengthen the Google's position to compete with other companies like Apple and Microsoft. And this intellectual property gain can boost the Android ecosystem and enhance the competition in mobile manufacturing. Then, in terms of synergy, the total revenue rose almost up to $12.5 billion in report of July 2012. And after the acquisition of Motorola, Google succeed in experience the best of its kind advantages from Motorola when the revenue rose from $10.8 million to $17.5 billion in that year. And there was an increasing in the market share price of Motorola for almost 60% from previous year. And the last one is they can accelerate the innovation as Motorola's mobility hardware expertise work together with the software expertise which was Google. And the last one is Google able to become a neutral company after sold Motorola to Lenovo. Google able to become a neutral company as an operating system broker because Google see that it can gain more profit by giving up Motorola to other companies because at that time Samsung and HTC are working to create their own operating system. So in conclusion, I can say that the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by Google is actually a success because Google's core motive to acquire Motorola only for the intellectual property which can be used as a defense against Apple patent to attack on Android license. That's all. Thank you.
The conclusion. To conclude, we would like to discuss the challenges faced by the Google company and its acquiring Motorola Mobility before, during and after the acquisition. However, we must understand that the acquisition took place a long time ago and it was in 2014. The company has separated. Today, the acquisition has no longer exist. Hence, we would like to brief one by one of their challenges faced by the Google company. So, the first one is past challenges faced by the Google company. According to our analysis, prior to the acquisition of Motorola Mobility by Google company, we found that the company have some trouble to involve in the hardware-related industry. Previously, as I mentioned it before, the company was focused on the software-related products such as mobile operating system, which is Android OS, and web browsers such as Google Chrome and the online video sharing platform YouTube. Google company need to start from scratch and undergo a few researches before developing hardware-related products. Furthermore, Google company was threatened by the rising of other competitors such as Apple and Microsoft in mobile operating industry system. Hence, to overcome this threat, the company believed that acquiring the Motorola Mobility will give access on their superb hardware pattern that will help to supercharge Android operating system. The next is the present challenges faced by the new firm. During the acquisition of Motorola Mobility, Google faced a huge challenges. The first one is Motorola Mobility suffered a huge loss in the market share before the acquisition took place. The first challenge that need to be accounted by the Google company was to help Motorola Mobility turn around their declining market share. Google company had to come with various measures and strategies to assist Motorola Mobility in regain its superior position. The company had to focus and ensure that Motorola did not suffer any loss after the acquisition, or else the acquisition will lead to fail. Secondly, Google company is a novice in a hardware manufacturing as the company is mainly focused on the software related development. Apart from Motorola Mobility, Android operating system was also manufactured by around 38 Android licensees including Samsung, HTC and Sony Ericsson. Android operating system operated device has a substantial amount of a market and a consumer loyalty, so it has the potential to affect the overall smartphone market. By taking over Motorola Mobility, the company tend to favor Motorola Mobility, which will risk in alienating its other Android licensees. Hence, it will be a huge challenge for Google to convince other Android licensees to keep their contract with the company. Lastly, the biggest complexity and challenges during this acquisition is how well both companies cater the differences of their company's work culture and attitudes. We all know that Google company emphasizes their work culture to be more creative and innovative approach. However, Motorola Mobility has broader corporate culture as they emphasize more on process and procedure, which focus on high power distance according to the Hofstede cultural dimension. Hence, to ensure that the acquisition of both companies integrate well, they need to fulfill and adjust each differences into one new culture that is more united and bring both companies together. Lastly, the few challenges that faced by the Google company. 3 years after Google announced to buy Motorola Mobility for $12.5 billion on 29 January 2014, the Google sold Motorola Mobility to a Chinese firm, Lenovo, for $2.9 billion. This marked the end of the acquisition between both companies. Today, Motorola Mobility future are set by Lenovo while Google continue to develop its own software products. To ensure that Google keep innovating and producing its own smartphone line, the company acquired with HTC, a Taiwan-based technology company for $1.1 billion. HTC has been a long partner for Google since the world's first Android smartphone back in 2008. According to Google, the company firmly believes that this new acquisition is different from the one that happened in the past. The company can utilize their expert intellectual patents and technologies within the HTC to continue developing and innovating its own products. It will also help the Google to remain its Google Pixel 9 smartphone for years to come. However, whether Google can successfully beat its competitors in the smartphone world, it will be a new challenge for the company. To keep pace with other smartphone players, the companies need to keep reinventing not only in terms of hardware but also in the software. With the emergence of artificial intelligence (AI), Internet of Things (IoT), and augmented reality and 5G, Google surely has more steps to take today and in the next future. That's all from us. Thank you for your attention.